From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate. It may be the weather equivalent of a lump of coal in your stocking this morning, but residents living along BC's coastlines are in for a windy and wet Christmas day. Environment Canada's weather alert map has that region painted red with wind and rain warnings stretching from Victoria all the way up to Prince Rupert. The forecast for that area calls for extreme southeast winds gusting up to 120 kilometers per hour. As Donald Trump continues to make outlandish threats of annexation, one political scientist from Carleton University is warning Canada's leadership to not get sucked in. Professor Aaron Ettinger says their concern would be better placed in worrying about the president-elect's real threats of tariffs. So far, the Liberal government has responded to Trump's threats by unveiling a $1.3 billion spending package that addresses border security and the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S. The company behind a unique demonstration project in southern Alberta says livestock production and renewable energy can successfully coexist.
Suncycle Farms recently completed a pilot project near the town of Cardston that put cattle to graze inside a working solar farm. CEO Jason Bradley says it's unusual because there's a perception that cattle are too large and could damage the solar panels. The pilot project was an example of agrivoltaics, a rapidly growing field that aims to combine solar energy production with agricultural activities. Around the world, researchers are exploring ways to maximize land use by raising livestock or growing crops on sites that are also home to wind or solar panels. Michelle Zedekian, The Canadian Press.
Authorities in South Florida are still trying to figure out what caused a deadly boat explosion on Monday. We have new details from reporter Allison Cossack.
The boat nearly splitting in half, ripping apart in a ball of fire. A local restaurant worker saw the explosion and rushed in to help.
One guy was on fire, another person was in the water. It was like chaos.
The fire department says one person killed with 5 others injured, 3 of them with traumatic injuries. Crews racing to douse the growing flames in the water. It's still not clear what sparked the explosion.
Officials say they'll get a better idea after they lift what's left of the boat out of the water. And finally, overseas, we have an update on a plane crash in Kazakhstan.
Officials now say there are at least 28 survivors after an Azerbaijan Airlines plane carrying 67 passengers and crew crashed as it was making an emergency landing in Kazakhstan. The plane had been scheduled to fly from Azerbaijan's capital Baku to the Russian city of Grozny when it had to make the emergency landing in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's emergency ministry says more than 30 people are likely dead and that some bodies have been recovered. I'm Donna Water.
This is the Canadian Press. In sports, the NHL is on its holiday break with the Winnipeg Jets sitting atop the standings. Looking ahead, though, the Edmonton Oilers will hope to maintain their momentum as they get set to return to the ice Saturday in Los Angeles. The Oilers are on a run of 11 wins in 13 games. The World Juniors gets underway Boxing Day. We've got Canada and Finland in the primetime spot. Meanwhile, the NBA has its traditional slate of Christmas Day games. The action kicks off at noon Eastern at Madison Square Garden with the Knicks hosting the San Antonio Spurs. Other games see Dallas host Minnesota. Defending champion Boston welcomes Philadelphia. Golden State entertains the Los Angeles Lakers, and Phoenix will host Denver. The Toronto Raptors, they return to action Boxing Day with a trip to Memphis. And finally, the NFL will feature Christmas matchups between the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Later in the day, it'll be the Baltimore Ravens visiting the Houston Texans. From the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.